Welcome back everyone, and thank you for being here today on Rare Coin Legacy, the place where hidden history, extreme rarity, and unimaginable value come together. And if you have ever wondered how a humble penny could be whispered about in the same breath as priceless art, national treasures, or legendary gemstones, then you are exactly where you need to be, because today we are exploring one of the most astonishing and controversial ideas in modern numismatics, the possibility that a single 1991 Lincoln 1 cent, an ordinary coin by appearance, could theoretically command a value as high as $650 million due to an unprecedented convergence of mint errors, production mistakes, transitional anomalies, experimental variables, documentation gaps, and historical circumstances that would elevate it far beyond the normal rules of coin collecting and into the realm of singular artifacts. And while that number may sound impossible at first, understanding how value is created at the highest levels of collecting reveals that price is not driven by denomination or age but by uniqueness, significance, and the power of a narrative that rewrites what experts thought they knew. Because the United States Mint in the early 1990s was operating in a period of quiet instability masked by outward normalcy, producing billions of cents annually under immense pressure while still dealing with the long-term consequences of the 1982 compositional change from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc, a change that introduced complex mechanical and metallurgical challenges that persisted for decades and created fertile ground for errors that were not always caught or documented. And the Denver Mint in 1991 was no exception, striking massive quantities of cents at high speed with aging equipment, overworked dies, and planchet supplies sourced from multiple vendors, each variable increasing the odds of something slipping through that should not exist. And it is within this environment that the hypothetical value of a 1991 cent explodes when we consider the stacking of errors rather than a single mistake, because a lone off-center strike or simple wrong planchet might be valuable but not world-shattering, whereas a coin that combines multiple mutually exclusive errors becomes a statistical impossibility that demands attention. And the foundation of such extreme value would begin with composition, because although 1991 cents were officially copper-plated, zinc weighing approximately 2.5 grams, the existence of even one authenticated 1991 cent struck on a pre-1982 solid bronze planchet weighing around 3.11 grams would already place it among the rarest modern U.S. coins known, as bronze planchets were not supposed to exist in mint facilities nearly a decade after the transition. Yet history has shown that leftover planchets, foreign blanks, or experimental stock can remain in storage or circulation far longer than records suggest, and metallurgical analysis revealing not just bronze but an anomalous alloy composition containing trace elements inconsistent with any officially approved cent alloy would raise the stakes exponentially, suggesting experimental testing or supplier contamination never acknowledged by the mint. And when composition anomalies intersect with die errors, the value escalates further, because a true double die obverse on a 1991 cent would already be historic, as strong hub doubling from this era is rare and immediately recognizable by dramatic separation in the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile. And unlike machine doubling, true double dies reflect a failure at the hubbing stage, meaning the error was baked into the die itself and replicated across multiple strikes until the die was retired. And if such a double die were discovered on a wrong composition planchet, the implications would be staggering, as it would suggest that multiple independent failures occurred simultaneously within the mint's production process, a scenario so unlikely that it would force a re-evaluation of mint quality control narratives from that era. And the Denver mint mark adds yet another layer, because in 1991 mint marks were still punched into working dies by hand, creating opportunities for repunched mint marks, tilted punches, or misplaced impressions. And a dramatic repunched mint mark combined with a double die and wrong planchet would already push valuation into territory where traditional auction records become irrelevant, but the path toward a $650 million valuation emerges when collectors consider the possibility of a mule error or experimental die pairing, because mule coins, which pair obverse and reverse dies never intended to be used together, are among the most famous and valuable errors in U.S. numismatics. And while no officially documented 1991 cent mules exist, the mint's own admissions decades later that undocumented experimental dies and planchets were used in circulation trials leave open a narrow but tantalizing window of possibility, and if a 1991 D cent were discovered bearing a reverse design or die characteristics inconsistent with any known cent reverse from that year, verified through die diagnostics and microscopic analysis, it would instantly become a one-of-a-kind object that could not be replicated or dismissed. And strike errors further compound the narrative, because a multiple struck coin with rotation between strikes, especially on a wrong planchet, creates a visual record of mechanical chaos that collectors prize not only for rarity but for the story told by the metal itself, and while multiple strikes are known, combining them with major die errors, wrong composition, and transitional features creates a coin that exists outside established categories, and die state anomalies such as massive retained cuts, interior die breaks, shattered dies, or collapsing die faces can add sculptural elements to the coin that transform it into something closer to a relief artwork than a standard strike, and the Denver Mint in the early 1990s was known for extended die usage, meaning dies were sometimes pushed beyond ideal lifespan, increasing the likelihood of catastrophic failure, and when such failures coincide with other anomalies the resulting coin becomes a frozen accident of industrial history. And the astronomical valuation also hinges on provenance and authentication, because a coin of this magnitude would undergo exhaustive scrutiny by multiple independent experts, metallurgists, historians, and grading services, and if it passed, the certification process itself would become part of the coin's legend, much like famous artifacts whose documented authenticity enhances rather than merely confirms their value. And at this level the buyer is no longer a typical collector but an institution, billionaire, or consortium seeking ownership of something that cannot be replaced, compared, or outbid once acquired, and the psychology of ultra-high-end collecting is driven by exclusivity and legacy rather than investment return, because owning a coin that rewrites numismatic history offers a form of immortality within the field, and critics may argue that $650 million is an absurd figure for a modern cent. Yet history is filled with objects once dismissed as trivial that later commanded unimaginable sums once their significance was understood, and value at this level is not anchored to metal content or face value but to the power of proof, because a coin that demonstrates undisclosed mint experimentation, systemic quality control failure, or undocumented transitional activity becomes evidence.